Hey everyone, welcome back, and although we're already at the end of January, Happy New Year! Sonic 3 released last month and oh boy did it give fans a lot to be happy about. Now I'm not the biggest Sonic fan ever, but I did enjoy quite a few of the games growing up. Just like so many other kids who popped in Sonic Adventure 2 Battle on their GameCube back in the day, I became an instant fan of Shadow the Hedgehog. I was always a little edgelord at heart who usually preferred the dark broody side character over the bubbly happy main characters. In fact, Shadow might even be the earliest form of this preference showing up in my childhood. I mean, come on, you can't make Keanu Reeves a strong, broody, tragic anti-hero, throw in weapons and motorcycles and it not be absolute cinema. So let's get this journey started, shall we? I start by finding some 3D models that I can work with and then tweaking them as much as I need to until it fits my vision for the statue. This model of Movie Shadow is pretty spot on, it's just missing a couple details that we'll add later on. The only model on this project that I purchased was the bike, since all the free models weren't really designed with 3D printing in mind. This model as well as all the others will be in the description if you guys want to check them out. Unfortunately, I can't record too much of this process as I've got a pretty outdated iPad with not much storage capacity, so mostly I can just show you guys some work in progress screenshots and short recordings throughout. First, I'll need to repose him since he comes in a very neutral pose to begin with. That process involves chopping up his limbs at the joints and repositioning them until he fits the pose I want. Now let's give that smooth body of his some fur. I went and got a picture of some fur online and used it as a texture brush so I can stamp it all over his body. I am definitely not an expert on this and there's gotta be a more effective way to do it, but this is all I know so far. And now that he's got some fur on his body, I gotta make sure I add that little chest puff that he has. Now at this point, the basic skeleton of the statue is in place. I knew he was going to be standing on top of the bike and holding his blaster in the middle of the street. So now it's time to start polishing that up and adding a few more elements. In the interest of time, I'll blitz through these since I don't have much footage to show for it anyways. Shadow's model has 2 fist hands, so I had to cut off his fingers on his right hand to reform it into a trigger pose. I then found a blaster that was kinda close and then added bits and pieces until it resembled the movie version a bit more. Since I used 3D Builder on my PC to make this, I actually have some footage to show for it. I didn't do too much, just added a few elements here and there. Next, I created a street sign from scratch that will go underneath the bike as a callback to his first mission in the game, Radical Highway. I know in the movie this scene takes place in Tokyo, but in the game it's Central City, so that's what I went with. I then moved on to the quills on his head that are a signature design for the movie versions of these characters. These weren't very difficult to do, but it was extremely time consuming to place each quill one by one. Once that was done, I decided to add one of Robotnik's drones to the base since it seemed a little empty. At some point, I also thought it was a good idea to give him some lightning to make him look even more menacing. I wasn't fortunate enough to find the logo of the movie online, so I had to make it myself from scratch. Now I still had one more spot on the base that I wanted to fill, and since they visited the Chow garden in the movie, I decided why not add a little Chow plushie in that spot. And with all the elements in play, here's the final render. Now we can print them out and get to work on the actual statue. And here it is, all the parts are printed, cleaned, cured, and ready to be sanded. I've been 3D printing for a few years now, and I can safely say that I've never had a perfect print for any project I've ever done. There's always at least a few little errors or misprints that need to be fixed, and this one's no exception. The motorcycle was approaching the size limit of what my printer is capable of, and therefore some of the pieces didn't print properly. But that's okay, I've got the experience and the tools to correct all these errors and hopefully make them look like they never even happened. which involves much of the usual, gluing broken parts back together, a boatload of sanding, filling holes and gaps, etc. If you guys have watched any of my other videos or many of the other artists who work with 3D prints, you'll probably be familiar with this process by now. And although it's only a couple seconds of screen time, this does take several hours, sometimes days depending on the project. It may not be very fun, but it's necessary to ensure that by the time you're done, it looks like quality work. What is fun, however, is the painting, so let's get past all the hours of boring stuff and get right on that. As usual, the first step here is a primer to make sure our paint has something solid to stick to, and it also gives us a good visual to see how well we did in the prep phase. Sometimes you'll think you're done, but after priming it, you'll find some new spots that still need some work that you didn't notice before. But if all is well, then it's time to start throwing on some base coats. Painting is usually the calm and satisfying part of the project, at least for me. By this point, most of the headache-inducing work is already done and I can just sit back and relax a bit. Seeing as this process is pretty self-explanatory, I'll let you guys enjoy watching me breathe some life into the statue with color. And as I bring the painting phase to a close, I'd like to take a minute to say thank you for watching. I say it every time, but it really means the world to me to be able to share my love of art with the world, and if I can get even a handful of people's attention as I do it, even better. If you like what you see, consider giving the video a like and subscribing if you want to watch me make more cool stuff in the future. And if you're a Sonic fan, you might want to tune in for my next one, since I'm not quite done with this movie yet. It's gonna be pretty super. For now though, let's wrap this up so I can show you guys my latest creation, the one and only Shadow the Hedgehog.